Hey everyone, this is Kathy from K.dill Handmade, and I wanted to welcome you to my video tutorial today for the Cascadia Crossbody Bag. Let me just show you a couple quick features of this bag. So here is the Cascadia. That's how it looks from the front and the back. The pattern comes with an optional flap feature. There are darts on the side, and then on the inside when you flip the flap up, there is an option for a hidden slip pocket here in the front, and then we have the top zipper. Going to the inside, we have a center divider zipper pocket. So that is the basic feature of the Cascadia Crossbody. You have options when you make this bag. So you could make it just like I showed there. You could also make a version without the flap. You could do different pieces. You could block it differently so that you have a little bit more of a design. You could do it in a solid color just like this. There is a pro strap, I'm calling it the pro strap feature. If you wanted to add a little bit more of a fancier crossbody strap, you could do that as well. Also included in this pattern is an option to make it flat. So if you eliminate the darts like this, here is a simple one that I made just flat as a pouch, but I still included the hidden slip pocket in the front, and then on the inside just a plain pouch. I eliminated that center zipper pocket, so it's real easy to add and take away different features to really make this pattern what you want. So I think this one's just really cute. You could use it like as a travel bag. You can put your makeup in there. If you're like me, you can put pens in there. Really lots of options to choose from. Okay, then in today's video tutorial, we're going to be making this version here. This is done with vinyl, and again, I show the pro strap option here. I go over that in the tutorial. I include a flip lock, so there is the option there. This one does have that hidden zipper pocket or hidden slip pocket. Like I said, you could eliminate that if you didn't want to, and that would make it really quick as well. And then I have the center divider zipper pocket on this one as well. Okay, and then just to go over that again, you could use just a standard snap. You could use a flip closure here. You could do like one of those press locks here. You could add that as well if you liked that style. It's also great for featuring magnetic snaps. Like this one here has the backing on it. Lots of magnetic snaps with really cool designs, and just that gives kind of that really neat feature to the front of your bag. Okay, so that is the Cascadia. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the pieces that we're going to need to make the Cascadia, for the flap version, obviously we will need the flap pieces. I have an exterior and a lining here. I'm also going to be adding a turn lock or a twist lock. This one just has, instead of a twist, it just has a little thing that flaps down, so I'm going to be adding that to the front of my bag. I have the main panel pieces here. I have two sets, so I have your center, and then you have two angled pieces here, one for each side. There are two sets of those. There are two top band pieces. I have two zippers, one for the inside pocket, one for the outside pocket, each with a zipper pull. And this one has a really cute football zipper pull, which I thought was perfect for the theme of the fabric. And then we have our lining. We have two pieces of that. We have four pieces of our interior divider zipper pocket. So there are four of those. We have our pro strap connectors here. We have our zipper end tabs, length of 1-inch webbing, our bag hardware here and here. And then I'm also going to be adding D-ring tabs to the side to install the side connectors. So instead of using hardware, you can use hardware, or you can use D-rings. For this one, we will be showing D-rings. And then, of course, our lobster clasp for our strap connectors. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, the first thing we're going to be working on are our side panels. So that is, we're going to start with our centerpieces. So we have two sets. Again, we have a center and two sides. We're going to do the same thing to both sets. So with your centerpiece here in the middle, we're going to lay that right side up. We're going to take each side piece here, flip it over so it is right sides down, and clip along the sides. And then we're going to sew down each side according to the seam allowance provided in the pattern instructions. We're going to do that for both sets. Okay, once you get those sewn down each side, you're going to open it up, flip it over. You're going to butterfly open these seams, so pushing them out to the side, and then you're going to flip it over with the seams still open. You're going to flip it over, and you're going to top stitch down each side of this side seam at about 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now you can just hold this down as you go, or if you prefer, you could also use some double-sided tape, and that will help hold it in place. But you're going to do that to both side seams, and then you will have a completed panel like this. You're going to do that to both panels. Okay, once you get both main center panels completed and top stitched down each side, we're going to set these to the side for now and grab your two flat pieces. So you should have an exterior and a lining. On the exterior, we're going to cut a piece of stabilizer for the flap only. So this is going to be Decoville Light or equivalent. You also could use fusible fleece, something like that, but we just want the flap to have a little bit more structure to it. So we're going to cut that and fuse it to the back of the flap. Okay, I have fused fusible fleece to the back of my flap piece. So now I'm going to turn this right side up. I'm going to take my lining piece, which is ripstop nylon. I'm going to flip it over, and we're going to attach it together. Because I am doing the flip lock here, I don't need to do anything with it yet. I will say that if you are adding a magnetic snap, you will install that to this portion of your lining panel now, and there is a pattern marking for where you will put your snap placement here. If you're adding any other kind of snap closure, if you have one that has, it's a little bit more decorative, like this one here that has this finish with this larger backing on it, you can wait until the end because it goes all the way through, so you don't have to install that just yet. So again, that's optional depending on the type of closure that you're using for your bag. Like I said, since I'm using the flip lock, I can do mine later. If you're using a plain magnetic lock, go ahead and install it now. And then once you get that installed, we will continue here with this next step, which is where we will place our two flat pieces right sides together. And I'm going to clip all the way around the outside, the sides, and the bottom curved edge, leaving the top flat edge unclipped and also unsewn. So once we get that clipped, we're going to sew all the way around according to the seam allowance provided in the pattern instructions, leaving this top edge unsewn because this is where we're going to be turning it through. Okay, once you get it sewn all the way around, I'm just going to take my pinking shears here and trim around these curved edges, and that's going to help the seam to lay nicer in those corners when I turn the flap through. Okay, once I get that trimmed, we're going to turn the flap through so it is right sides out. Okay, now what we want to do is just again clip around these sides just to help keep those seams pushed out. So as you're going, just make sure your seams are looking good, everything is lining up correctly. And we're going to clip all the way around. Okay, once you get that clipped all the way around, now we are going to top stitch at about 1/8 of an inch from the edge of the flap all the way around these 3 sides. Optionally, you can base stitch this end closed as well. Okay, now that your flap panel is top stitched all the way around, what you want to do now is grab one of your exterior panels, the one that's going to be the back. And what I like to do is I like to just fold it in half, match up the seam here, so you know for sure that you're getting the middle of that center panel. And then mark the center. You can use a pen for this, or I like to use just the tiniest little nick in the fabric, and that helps me to see where the center is. And I'm going to do the same thing to that flat edge of the flap right there. And then take your flap, flip it over, match up those little notch marks that you just made. And we're going to clip straight across. Okay, now you have the option here, you can baste this flap on, or what I usually do is I'll just grab my top band here, and then I'm going to take it, flip it over so it is right sides together with everything else, and it should match up exactly, so I don't need to worry about finding the centers here. I'm just going to again clip across so all these 3 pieces are clipped together. And then I'm going to sew across the top here according to the seam allowance provided in the pattern. Okay, once your top band is stitched, we need to now flip it up. So we're flipping the flap and your top band up, and then we're going to press the bottom of your bag down. So the seam allowance is going down towards that bottom panel. So if you flip it over, your seam allowance is going this way. We're going to take it to the machine and we're going to sew down this folded edge here at about 1/8 inch seam allowance. Now, if you aren't adding the flap, then you just leave the flap off. You only will attach the base and your top band and sew straight across. And then in that case, I would flip it up with the seam allowance going up and top stitch along the fold along the top band. With the flap though, it usually works better if you press the seam allowance down towards this and top stitch along this bottom folded edge. Okay, once you get that top stitched here, what you want to do is you want to flip your whole piece over, and using your side pattern piece, you're going to transfer the markings for the darts. Now, if you are not making a darted version and you're just making the flat version, you can skip this step obviously, since you will not be making these darts. But if you are, we're just going to connect that dot here with the lines that were marked. And then these are going to be our lines that we are going to sew down to create the darts. So now we're going to fold it right sides together. We're going to take this line here and this line here. We're going to match them up. Make sure they match up here at the point. And then I'm going to add a clip here and a clip here. And we're going to sew all the way down this edge, coming all the way off, because you want to make sure that you're sewn all the way down to the point. So we're going to back stitch at the beginning and at the end, making sure that our stitches will be locked in place. And we're going to do that for both darts. Once we get that done, we are then going to push this little piece over to one side and top stitch it, but I will come back and show you that part. Right now what we need to do is we just need to sew down these 2 darts. Okay, once those are sewn down, now what we need to do is we just need to fold this out to the side. So for the back, I typically like to sew the darts down towards the center. You can fold them whichever way you want. Just know that whichever way you fold them on the back, you're going to fold them the opposite way on the front, and that way you'll be able to nest your seams. So I'm just going to fold that in, clip it in place, and the same thing here, fold it in, clip it in place. So mine are both in towards the center of the panel, of the back of the bag, and then I'm going to just top stitch right along this seam, right up to this point right here. Same on this one, top stitch right up to this point. Okay, once those are top stitched, we can set this panel to the side for now, and let's move on to the next step. Okay, we are ready to move on to the front of our bag. So grabbing our other center and side panels that we completed, the one thing that I did forget to mention when I was showing the pattern pieces is I forgot to mention that if you're doing the hidden slip pocket in the front, you will also need 2 pieces of your lining fabric to make those pocket pieces. Okay, so we are going to add the hidden slip pocket to this bag. If you were not going to add the slip pocket, you would then just take your other top band here and just like on the back, sew across, flip it up, and then top stitch along this top band. Okay, we are going to do that in a second because we need to attach, or we need to also incorporate this hidden slip pocket. Okay, so to do that, we're going to set our 2 pocket pieces to the side just for a moment. We're going to take our bottom and our top band. We're going to flip these down so that they are right sides together. I'm just going to add a couple clips here on the side. I'm not going to go all the way across because we're going to be adding the pocket. Now this is a different kind of pocket construction installation. I saw it from Nicole over at Sonar in her K.dill tote pattern, and I was so inspired by it. I really wanted to include it in one of my patterns, and I reached out to Nicole and asked her would she mind if I included it in this pattern, and she said no, that would be great. So if you are familiar with the K.dill tote, this will be familiar to you. If you're not, please go check out that pattern. Also check out the rest of Nicole's patterns because she's just an awesome human being. So I did want to say again, thank you to Nicole for letting me have this construction in my pattern. And so now what we need to do is we need to attach the pocket. Now this is going to feel a little bit backwards and a little bit wrong, but don't worry, everything is a-okay. All right, so what we want to do is we're going to flip our pocket or our main panel piece over, and then we are going to take our longer piece of lining. Okay, so the one that we're going to attach to the top band side has to be the longer piece of pocket. Now what we want to do is just measure about 1/2 of an inch, and I'm just going to make a line here just as a reference, and then grabbing some double-sided tape, I'm going to put some double-sided tape down just on this side of that line. Okay, removing the tape, I'm going to take my pocket piece, and it might be a little hard to see because this is ripstop nylon, so it's hard to see which is the right side and which is the wrong side. The right side is a little bit shinier, so I'm going to take that. Let me just find the center here, and I can see right there. I'm going to line it up with that 1/2 inch mark, press it down, and then I'm just going to move these clips over and clip it to the side. Okay, so that's how that looks. Now what we need to do is flip it over, and again we're going to add another line here that is 1/2 of an inch in. Again, double-sided tape. Okay, remove the paper backing, and then taking the shorter piece, we're going to line it up side to side with the other piece, lining it up on that line, and then clip it in place. So yes, both of your lining pocket pieces are off to one side. Both of your main exteriors are off to one side. Now what we want to do is we want to sew all the way across this edge, but we're going to sew, I use this as my guide. So right where the seam is, right here and right here, this is going to be, let's see if I can grab a different pen. So right there and right there, I'm going to stitch my regular stitch length right here. Once I get to here, I'm going to back stitch a couple stitches, increase to a very long basting stitch, like a 6 or a 7, and then I'm going to sew all the way across to here, stop, go back to my regular stitch length, go forward and backward a couple stitches here just to tack it down again, and then continue stitching all the way across at the standard seam allowance. Okay, now that that is stitched across, what we want to do is we want to open it up, and we're going to press these seams back and butterfly open the center seam. This part can be a little tricky because we do have that seam right here where we joined our front, center, and side panels. So if you'd like to use some double-sided tape to help hold it in place, you are welcome to do that. But what we're going to do now is once we get this seam pressed all the way open, just like we did here, we're going to bring it, flip it over, make sure your seams are open, and we're going to top stitch, regular stitch length, all the way down. So top stitching on both sides of this center seam all the way across. Again, making sure that your pocket pieces are going the right way and your seams stay opened. I'm going to add some double-sided tape here just to make sure that my seams do indeed stay open, especially in this pocket area right here, because that's where you're really going to notice it, because you'll be able to see inside of the pocket. So I just want to make sure right here I give it a little help if it needs it. Okay, so I'm going to remove the paper backing, press that side seam open again, and then take it to the machine and top stitch down both sides. Okay, so I'll see you back here in just a second. Okay, once you get that top stitched, that's what it looks like from the back side. Now what we need to do is grab our seam ripper, and between these marks where we had the larger based stitching stitch length, we're going to insert our seam ripper right there, and then I'm just going to go across to the other seam here. So that is going to open up this pocket. You will have a couple little strings here. You can just pull them out. There shouldn't be too many because you had a larger stitch length, but go ahead and pull those out. There we go. I think I got them all. Okay, so that's going to create the hidden slip pocket. Now flipping it back over, we're going to take that top panel and fold it down to meet the bottom one. Okay, it should meet up pretty close to exact. If it doesn't, don't worry about it, because like I said, this is a hidden slip pocket. No one's going to see it. No one's going to see it underneath. Okay, once you get it clipped, we're going to take it back over, pull this up and away. So you want it try to keep it as flat as possible. And by it, I mean pocket pieces. Pulling this exterior piece away, you're going to get as close as you can here to the top of your lining pocket, stitch down, across, and then back up again as close as you can get to your exterior here without going into your exterior. Make sure you don't go into your exterior here or here, because if you do, when you flip it back over, you're going to be able to see those stitch lines. Those stitches are going to come through to the exterior. Okay, so we're just going to stitch straight around these 3 sides. Okay, so here our pocket is all stitched together. I'm not worried about this because it's so small. I don't think anything is going to try to sneak up and get in there and get out. If you are worried about that, you could just lift it up a little bit and add a little dab of glue and press that down. Same thing on this side, just pull it back a little bit, add a little dab of glue and press it down, and then you know for sure you don't have to worry about it. Okay, but that is what our hidden slip pocket looks like. It is so cool and so clever. I just love it. And then this pocket is wide, so you should be able to just set your phone right inside. As you'll see here, you can slip your phone in and it's secure. You don't have to worry about it, which is what I really wanted, because I wanted you to be able to carry your phone in an easy to access place, but also make it secure. So since it's wider, your phone is wider than the pocket, it should not slip out. Okay, all that said, the next thing we need to do here is we need to again mark our dart placings. If you are adding darts, we are going to sew them just like we did. We are going to sew them just like we did on the back side, but this time, instead of pressing our darts towards the center, we're going to press our darts towards the side. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that, and then I'll be back to show you the next step. Okay, the last thing we need to do here before moving on is if we are making the flap and we've already installed the magnetic snap on the flap, we need to install the magnetic snap on this panel. There is a measurement and a mark on the pattern piece for where you will mark that. Because I'm going to fold my pocket up and out of the way. Because I am doing this turn lock here, I'm going to install this part here. I won't install until the very end because I want to make sure that it lines up correctly, but I will need to install this one next because I won't be able to get to it if I don't do it now. So I have to. All right, so what I'm going to do is I've already marked the dot. That is the center mark for the magnetic snap. So I've put my bracket here right in the center and looking to see where these prongs come out, so knowing where I need to mark. They are 1 in from each side. Okay, so now taking my seam ripper, I'm going to just carefully put my seam ripper in and just go up a little bit. Just go slow. If you're not used to doing this, it can be a little scary because you don't want to all of a sudden go wild and then you have a big tear up your fabric. You definitely don't want that. So just go slow. And then we're going to push the brackets through so it looks like that. On the back side, I'm going to flip it over, and then I'm going to just grab a piece of scrap cork here. You could use Decovil, Peltex, cork, leather, any kind of fabric that you have a scrap of. And this is an optional step, but I do like it. I do think it helps to give it a little bit of stability and just some support since we just have the fabric here. Okay, so I put that down and then I put the bracket down, and then I'm going to press the prongs in towards the center like that, making sure they are as flat as I can get them. And then the very last step that we need to do is just take a small piece of duct tape and place it over the top. Again, this part is optional. The duct tape is optional, but it does help to protect your lining fabric from wear and tear from this metal hardware. So I always like to add a little piece of duct tape there. Okay, so there is the turn lock piece installed, and we are ready to put this to the side and move on to the next step. Okay, the next thing we're going to be working on is our lining materials, our zipper pocket, our zipper divider pocket, and our main lining pieces. Okay, so to start on our zipper divider pocket, we are going to need our 4 pieces that are specifically for the pocket. You're going to need your shorter zipper pull installed, and your 2 zipper tab ends. Now I will say that there is a pattern piece for the zipper pocket pieces. They are angled and they are smaller than your lining piece, and that is by design because the lining piece will have darts in it as well, so it changes the shape and it changes the size. If you are doing the flat version without darts, do not use this piece because it won't work. What you will need to do is, and I mentioned this in the pattern, but you will need to cut some different size pieces, and then you're going to use the pattern piece that's identified in the pattern to round your corners, and then that will allow you to have the proper size zipper pocket pieces, and then also your length of zipper is different as well. So just know that if you are making that version, you're going to have to make those little modifications. Okay, so for what we need to do here with our zipper is we're going to take the zipper, 1 zipper tab end, and there's one length that should be the exact width of your zipper tape. We're going to fold it over and clip it in place. So this is raw edge vinyl here. If you do not like that look, you can make your zipper tab end larger and then fold it under. However, this is going to be on the inside of the bag, and I do not want to add any bulk. So that is why we are doing it this way. Okay, so we are not adding any bulk by having our zipper tab ends this way, but if you do not like that, like I said, go ahead, do your own version. We just need to cover the ends of the zipper. Okay, once we get that done, we're going to top stitch down each side at about 1/8 inch seam allowance. Okay, once you get those zipper tab ends on, if you're using different fabric for your exterior and lining pockets here, go ahead and grab your exterior pieces, one of your exterior pieces. I'm using the same here, so it doesn't quite matter which one I use, but I'm going to find the center of the panel and then the center of my zipper tape. And I could mark it, but if I hold it fast and match it up with this other one, I should be good. And then I'll just double check to make sure that it is centered, and it is indeed centered. Okay, so I'm just going to clip straight across, and it looks like my zipper tape is a little bit wavy here. I'm not really sure why. So hopefully that won't be an issue later on. But again, this is on the interior of the bag, and I'm not too worried about it. Okay, so you have the option to baste stitch this on or grab one of your lining pocket pieces and flip it over so it is right sides down. So your exterior pocket piece is right side up. Your zipper is right sides down or teeth sides down. And then your lining pocket piece is right sides up. So your 2 pocket pieces, your exterior and your lining, will be right sides together. Okay, hopefully that made sense and that wasn't too much right side, wrong side. All right, once we have that, we're going to sew straight across here at about 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, that is sewn down. So what we want to do now is press both panels away from the zipper tape. And I'm going to add just a couple clips here to help hold it in place, just because I don't want it going anywhere when I'm trying to sew. So just one on each side and one at the bottom. Okay, and then what I'm going to do now is top stitch right across this folded edge here at about 1/8 inch seam allowance. And then I'm going to repeat the process to attach these panels to the other side of the zipper, and then again fold them away from the zipper tape and then top stitch down that side. Okay, once you get your pocket pieces sewn on and both sides are top stitched, we are now going to fold it in half so it will be lining sides together, and then your exterior sides will be out, matching up that top seam. And then I'm just going to clip all the way around. The last thing we're going to do here is just baste stitch around the edge of this pocket, and this will help to make attaching it to one of our lining panels in the next step a little easier. Okay, so once you get that base stitched, we can set this to the side. Okay, the next thing we need to work on is our two main lining panels. So flipping them over to the back side, you are going to transfer the dart marks from the pattern piece onto the backs of your pocket pieces. We're going to fold them in half so it is right sides together, matching up those lines just like we did on the exterior. And then we're going to sew the darts. The only difference is for the exterior, we sewed right on the line. For the lining, we want to increase the seam allowance just a little bit. So about 1/8 of an inch over from this line is where you're going to sew. And that's just going to help make your lining panels fit nice and snugly inside of your main exterior. Okay, so I'm going to finish clipping these sides, these darts down. And then, like I said, we're going to sew, oops, we're going to break a clip. All right, and then we're going to sew 1/8 of an inch on this side. So not towards the dart, but 1/8 of an inch in from that stitch line is where we're going to sew these together. Okay, once you have your darts sewn, you have the option, you could fold them over and stitch them down just like you did on the exterior. I find that is not quite necessary for the lining, but if you like that and you would like to do that, then do that. What I'm doing here is I'm just trimming off, leaving about 1/4 of an inch seam allowance from that stitch line, trimming off the extra darts, and there we go. Our two lining panels are complete. Okay, so now we need to just set one to the side for now. On the bottom of one, I'm going to fold it in half. I'm going to match up those darts so I know where the center is. And I'm going to make a little tick mark. And then grabbing my zipper pocket here, I'm going to fold that in half. Finding the center there as well. Making sure all my pieces are laying straight. And a little snip there. Okay, and then I'm going to match up those clip marks. And then add a couple clips here to the left and to the right. Okay, now we want to make sure, as you can see, it is quite shorter, and that's because our panel is going to be bowed up, and that's going to create our side pocket, and then we're going to have our zipper pocket, and then we're going to have another side pocket over here. So what we want to do is we want to measure down. There is a measurement provided in the pattern. We're going to measure down. I'm just going to mark that spot and then clip around And everything should line up pretty well. If you have any bit of a gap, you could just ease it into your dart, and it should be it should be just fine. And clip it in place. And the same thing here. Again, if I have a little bit extra, I'll just ease it in around this corner. There could be a couple reasons for that if I didn't quite do the right seam allowance here on my dart. Optionally, if you don't like just easing it in, you could just take this back and do a little bit of an increase here, another stitch just to the inside of your original stitch line, and that should help take up that extra gap. Okay, now here what we're going to do is we are just going to baste this on again all the way around. Okay, now that we have that stitched on, you can see it creates that little pocket there in the back, and then we have our center divider zipper pocket, and we can set our 2 lining pieces to the side. This is bunchy. You might wonder if that's correct. That is correct because you have this area here where it bows out. When you are attaching it to your lining panel or to your exterior panel, it will line up. Everything will line up, but for right now, it's just going to feel a little bunchy. Okay, so we can set this to the side. We have our 2 exteriors done. We have our 2 linings done. Our pocket is done. And now what we need to do is some final prep work. So this is on our main zipper. So on the closed side, which is the flat side of the zipper, we're going to take another zipper tab, fold it in half, and then we're going to base stitch 1/8 of an inch down the side here, just like we did on that center divider zipper. Okay, you know what's coming next, right? We need to prep this end of the zipper. So once that is sewn on, we're going to split this zipper tape a little bit, just enough so that we can fold these corners over at a 90-degree angle. Now you can secure this in place, whichever method is your favorite. I love this mini stapler, and I will always use it as long as I have it. As long as I have staples, then I'm using it. So you're just going to secure your zipper ends in place here, just at a 90-degree angle, and then our zipper is ready, and we are ready to start to put it all together. Okay, a little prep work here for our D-ring tabs. I've cut a length of webbing. The length is provided for in the pattern instructions. You can make your own tabs here, but often I find that webbing works great. It's also a bit of a time saver, and it's really strong. So I like using webbing a lot for this type of step. All right, I'm going to take my 2 D-rings, feeding the webbing through. I'm just going to clip the ends to hold it in place. I'm going to do that for both D-rings. Okay, and then grabbing one of my exteriors. So I'm probably going to grab my front piece. I'm going to install these D-rings here on this top band. So I want it, you have to take into account that you have a seam allowance up here that's going to happen. So you don't really want it to be centered, because when that seam allowance happens, it's going to take part of that away and it's not going to be centered. So wherever your center mark is, you want to come down about 1/4 of an inch. And then I'm going to let this overhang probably by about half. I will trim off the extra strap webbing when I get there. Once it's all sewn together. And let me just do a quick little measurement here. So up from that seam, it is about, what is that? It's about 1/2 of an inch. Okay, so that'll be a real easy way to know. Same for here. Up from this seam right here, 1/2 of an inch. And then, like I said, I'm going to let it overhang by about by about half. Now this pattern does provide options and instructions for adding hardware to the side of the bag. You have to be very careful if you're adding hardware because you don't want it to be too wide because the top of this bag is very narrow. So if you're doing an arch ring, you really want it to be a small one that has a narrow base, and then that way it's not going to be pulling on your fabric trying to make it open when your bag wants to be narrow naturally by design. Okay, so another option is to do D-rings. These are a little bit easier as well. Really, it's personal preference, so that's what I'm going to be doing here. Another thing that I'm going to be doing is I'm going to add a little woven label here with my logo, my little name logo on it. And I'm just going to sew this into the seam. So if I think, I usually wear my bag, I'm visualizing, I usually wear my bag on my right hip. So this will be towards the back of my body, and that's where I want my tab to be, my little name tab. So I'm just going to put this down here, just right below that center seam. Okay, and now I'm going to take this to the machine. I'm going to baste all three of these right in place. Okay, everything is basted on. Now we are finally ready to put this thing all together. I'm so excited. I can't wait to see how it's going to look. I always get so excited when we get to this point because it's like you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. You know you're almost done. Okay, so here I'm just going to make a little mark in the center of the zipper. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, just so I know where the center of the zipper is, and then for the exterior here, same thing, just like I've done on all the others. I'm going to fold it in half and make a tiny snip so I know where the center is there. I got an extra string. All right, now I'm going to take the zipper and I'm going to lay it on the bag. Again, thinking about how I lay my bag on my hip, I have it on my right side, so I'm going to want the zipper open and closed to be towards this end because this will be in the front of my body. So I have to flip this over so that the open and close is on this side, and then flipping it down so it's teeth side down. I'm going to make that center mark on the zipper tape and align it with the little notch that I made in the panel, and I'm clipping it across the zipper. Okay, once you have that done, again, just like you did on the other zipper, if you prefer to baste this in place, you can. If not, we're going to grab one of our lining panels. Now again, I'm going to do the same thing here and try to match up my zippers. So if I were to take this one, and this could be different for you depending on which way you install this, because for the lining it doesn't really matter. But if I were to take this one and line it up here, as you can see, my zipper opens and closes on that side. My main zipper is opening and closing on this side. I don't want that, so I don't want to attach these two together. That will be on the other side. So for this one, I'm going to take the piece that doesn't have the zipper pocket on it, and I'm going to match that up along the top, clip it in place, and then we're going to sew all the way across the side of this bag. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to sew all the way across according to the seam allowance. Then we're going to press both panels away. Again, your pockets, your pocket and your main are right sides together. We're going to sew it across, press both pieces away from the zipper, and then we are going to top stitch, but we are only top stitching through this exterior piece. We are not top stitching the lining. So I will do this part, I'll come back and I'll show you the next part, and then I'll show you how we attach the other side. All right, so that is stitched on. What we want to do now is flip it away from the zipper. So just give it a nice finger press, pushing everything away from your zipper tape. Okay, now here is where you can make an executive decision. If you like to stitch through your lining and your exterior, go ahead and do that. You can stitch through both now. I'm going to not stitch through the lining. I'm only going to stitch through the exterior. So I want to make sure that my seam allowance here is pressed towards the lining. And then I'm going to sew top stitch straight down this fold right here next to the zipper at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, top stitched through just the exterior only. I'm going to fold the lining down again, and I'm just going to add a clip on each side just to help hold everything in place and to keep it out of the way as I'm attaching the other side. All right, because I have on our other main exterior, we do have, let me see, let me push this out of the way. We do have that flap, so that can be a little tricky. It can get in the way sometimes, but hopefully yours isn't too bulky or stiff and you're able to easily just move it when you need to move it. Okay, I'm just finding the centers here of these panels, the main and the lining. Okay, and now we are going to attach the other side of the zipper. So with our other main panel, right side up, the one with the flap, if you're doing a flap, or just your other main panel, we're going to take this one with the zipper, flip it over, find that center mark again, match it up with the center mark on the zipper, and then we're going to clip it all the way across. You can baste stitch this on, or just go ahead and attach your lining just like we did on the other side, and then we're going to sew it across. We will flip it back out of the way and then top stitch. Whichever way you top stitched on the first side, you'll do the same thing on this side. Okay, once that is all sewn, this is what it's looking like, and you can see that yes, this does bunch up because once we get all of this sewn together, it will all work, trust me. But it may look a little strange right now and you're probably thinking that's not going to work, that's not going to fit. Don't worry, it will. Okay, so what we want to do now is we need to sew up all the way around the outsides. So I'm going to roll up my flap, try to keep it out of the way, and then coming over here to the side seam, right here where the zipper is, I'm going to match up that side seam first, and then try to, hopefully, the seam matches up as well. I'm going to clip that in place. And I'm going to clip all the way around the exterior first. When you get to your corners here, as you can see, this matches up pretty much perfectly. So your seams will nest here in your darts in the corners. And then again across the bottom, coming all the way across. Okay, over here to the other dart. Nesting those right next to each other. All right, and then over here, I'm going to come to this side, match up this top seam. And you want to match your top seams up because that's what's going to be seen. If your bottom seams don't exactly match up, that is a-okay. No one's going to be looking at the bottom of your bag. No one's going to see that, but they will see what's at the top. So we want to try to match up those top seams as close to perfect as we can. Okay, so once you have your top stitched, not stitched, clipped, we're going to turn it over And we're going to do the same thing with the lining. And we're going to clip down. And it'll be a little harder to see your seams here on the lining because you have that divider zipper pocket in the way, but you should be able to eyeball it and see that they match up pretty closely. Okay, I'm going to clip. I'm going to clip just until I get around to this corner where it starts to flatten out. I'm not going to clip the rest of the way because we are not going to be sewing that. We are going to be leaving that open so that we can turn it through that opening there. Okay, in our pocket, we'll want to pull a bit. So just kind of hold it firm. It's wanting to pull your lining panel in. So hold it as you clip around. Again, matching up that bottom seam. This one looks really good. Okay, clip there, and I think one more clip and then I'll be good. Okay. So I have, actually, probably I can get rid of this one because you want to, it's a little tricky because we are working on a curve, but we want to leave this, and you will see that this will, once we get it sewn, you will see once everything pulls out and looks okay, this will line up correctly. What we want to do is we want to stitch all the way around, but we want to leave this bottom edge open because that is where we're going to be turning it through, and then we are going to close up the bag through this opening. So leaving, if you come in too far, obviously there's no way you're going to get your bag turned through there. So kind of come down to right about there. I would say, what is that? I would leave a good 7 inches. I would leave a good 7 inches unsewn here. That'll just make it a whole lot easier for you to turn your bag through. Okay, so we're going to start and stop, go all the way around, come back down here, start and stop, and then I'll meet you back here so that we can turn it through. All right, we are getting so close to done. This is really exciting. All right, so what I want to do here is I just want to trim off the extra webbing from the side. And I'm not making it completely flush, but I am getting kind of close because I want to give it a little extra strength here. I'm just going to give it a little singe so it doesn't melt. Okay, and now what we need to do, let's see, last step before we do that is we need to, again, this is optional. You can use your pinking shears again around the corner if you want to help your bag to lay nice once it's turned through. So I'm going to do that. All right, there we go. Okay, now we are ready to turn this through. Okay, so reaching in through our zipper pocket, we're going to open the main zipper. You want to open it all the way, and then reaching in, we're just going to grab the bag and start working it through. This might take a little time, so don't force anything. Just slowly work it through and you'll get it. Okay, once you get your exterior done, you can push your lining back inside. See how it looks. And it looks really cute. It looks so good. That's how it's going to look when closed. I love the little football zipper pull. Okay, anyways, I'm getting distracted. All right, the last thing we need to do here, pull your lining back out. And we need to close up the opening. So what I'd like to do here is just add a little piece of double-sided tape. I almost said zipper tape. Not zipper tape. A little bit of double-sided tape here. to the center divider pocket. Okay, now this part can be a little tricky, so you just have to be patient. But once you get once you get the zipper tape or the paper tape off of that, you're going to fold over the side that doesn't have Okay, let me just show you. What you want to do is you want to fold it under so it meets. This can be a little tricky because we have the darts and we have all the layers and we have all the things going on. So, like I said, just take your time, fold it under. I like to add a little clip once I get it where I want it. So I'm folding under the pocket side, and then I'm folding under the other lining side until it meets, and clip. All right, there we go. Now, once it is clipped, the last thing we need to do is we need to sew straight across this edge as close as we can get to the edge while still catching both sides of our pocket pieces. So I typically like to sew that at about 1/16 of an inch. Basically, like I said, as close as you can get and still catch both sides. Okay, once we get that sewn, we can push everything back inside, check it, make sure it all looks good, and then I'll meet you back here to show you how we install the other half of our turn lock. Okay, so I just wanted to show you one quick thing real quick. So that's how close I sewed mine. It's not perfect, but it's okay. It's going to be in the base, in the bottom of our bag. No one's going to see it. But it might have looked like this lining piece was too big. But it's because of the way that we're working on the curve. And so when I turned it down, I just wanted to show you that I don't have any extra bunching on this side, that it did fit just like it should. And everything looks really good. Okay, so we're pushing that back inside, closing it up. Now the last thing we need to do here is to install the other half of our turn lock. So the reason why I do this at the end is because I'm going to flatten this bag out a little bit. I like to fold it down and make sure that it is where I want it to be. For instance, or for example, if I were to install it first, and then just in sewing and doing different things, it kind of got a little bit shifty, and it got out of alignment. Then I have no choice. Like if my hole was here, then I would have to install it this way and my flap would be wonky and I would hate that. So what I like to do is just do it at the end, hold it down, and then what I will do is I kind of press, I mean it's a little different because I'm using ripstop nylon on the inside, so you won't really be able to you won't be able to make an indent. If you're using vinyl, you can typically push it down and then it'll make the indent. But this one does not. Okay, so right about there is where I want it. I don't want it to be too tight. Like I don't want to pull it like super tight and then there's no room up there. So I think right about there, which is, yeah. Okay, so this is, I'm just going to look at it from this side, and this might be another way to help you see what I'm talking about. So if I mark the sides there for where that bracket is, I know that's going to be straight. Okay, Now what we need to do is take our hardware here, and then we're going to trace where that opening needs to go. So using the back side, there we go. Okay, so using the back side of this bracket, what I want to do is I'm just going to line up those marks. And I want it to be straight, so there. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm just going to mark the holes, and then I'm going to mark that center square. Okay, so that center square is what I want to be cut out. So the easiest way that I have found to do this is to use this little die tool right here. And I'm just going to line it up. Again, like I said, I'm going to move it a little bit further towards the end, towards the flap end. And then let me get my hammer, and I promise I will mute this part so you guys don't hear the banging. Okay, once I get, and I will link in the video description as to where I got these dies so that if you wanted to use them as well, you could. You also could just use your scissors and trim it and cut it out. But that is what we're looking like. The last thing I need to do here, and I'm actually going to use my table press for this one, is I just need to add a dot, because you can see on here we have these screw holes outside of this square. So I just need to add a dot centered and off to the side a little bit so that I have somewhere for that screw hole to go through. All right, there we go. So taking our front, and making sure it fits in there nicely. Okay, and then laying the back of the bracket right on top. There we go. Helps having a magnetic screwdriver. Now I need to make sure this side as well. Okay, now before I tighten those all the way down, I'm just going to flip it, see how it looks. And to me, it looks perfect. So now I'm just going to tighten these screws down. There we go. So here is our bag so far. Oops, let me poke those. There we go, poke those corners out. Look how cute that looks. I am going to be styling this year for football season. All right, maybe one day my Lions will have some hardware of their own. Hopefully. Hopefully, that would be nice. I don't know if it's going to happen, but we'll see. All right, so now we are done with this part. So cute. And then there's my little tag sticking out the side there. All right, so we can set this to the side, and then let's finish up this bag by finishing up our straps. Okay, the last thing we need to do here to finish off our bag is to finish off our strap. so we have something that we can carry it with. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to work on the Pro strap, which is what I'm calling the Pro strap. There is a pattern piece in the pattern that has a rounded edge. For this one, I just made it straight. I folded it in half and then I cut, and actually as I'm looking at it, I need to make this angle a little bit. There we go. I just trimmed off the corners. There we go. Okay, now we're in business. Okay, so what we want to do is on the inside, what I like to do for these, since they're vinyl and will get a lot of wear and tear since it is on the bag strap, and so your weight, and as you're wearing it and moving it around and all this stuff, it'll get some wear and tear. So what I like to do is just put a little piece of Grosgrain ribbon on the inside here. And so that's just going to help it to give it a little extra strength. Really, it doesn't matter how far down you go. You just want it, the important part is that you want it here in the center because that's where the stress point is going to be. Okay, so now I'm going to take one of my D-rings, one of my lobster clasps, and I'm going to install it right here in the center, just like this, right? Okay, before I do that though, I'm going to take my rectangle ring and my shorter piece of webbing. I'm going to feed it over the rectangle ring so it looks like this. Now, just ever so slightly in these corners, I'm going to trim these corners a bit towards the center. Okay, this is not necessary. It's not a required step, but I like to do that just to angle it in a little bit on my strap end so that I don't have to worry about the end poking out anywhere. All right, next thing I'm going to do here is use some fabric tack. This is fabric glue. And I'm just going to put some here on both sides of the strap end. Okay, and then I'm going to take this piece and slide it in to that strap end. Okay, so that's how it's looking. You want it centered. Okay, and then I have some little bit stronger clips here. I'm just going to clip this for now. I'm going to leave it like this. I'm going to set it to the side and let it dry while we're working on the other piece. Okay, to work on the other part of the strap, we're going to take one end of your strap webbing, feed it up and over through the center bar on the adjuster. Now you have an option here if you would like to add a bit of a fancy end. There we go. Make sure it's the right width. You can sew straight across this end. So I am going to do that before I put these all together, before I secure everything all together. I am going to sew this right on the end. And then, just like a traditional strap, we are going to secure this in place. So you have the option, if you want to, again, sew across here. You could add a rivet or two to secure it in place as well. But that is our next step. So if you're adding the end tab here, sew that on and then secure in place. You could also stitch a box to secure it in place. Really, the method is up to you. All right, so I just stitched a line here across the bottom to secure it in place and added a rivet for additional security. Okay, so now with this side up, we're going to come over to the other end of the strap and we're going to feed it through the hardware that is on our pro strap end. Okay. Again, making sure not to twist your strap. We're going to feed it up and over through that adjuster bar. So right up and over through that middle piece. Okay, and then coming to this side, we are going to now secure our strap end here as well. And if you want to use a strip just like we did on the other side to put it on the end there, you could. You could also fold this over like this. Again, it's personal preference. Whichever way you like to finish your straps, please feel free to do that. I'm going to add another piece of vinyl here across the end, just like we did here. I'm going to do the same thing on this side and secure that. And then the last thing we need to do, so let me just clip this in place. The last thing we need to do is then we need to come back over here and we need to stitch across all these sides. So stitching through the whole thing, securing the strap end to the strap. So I will do all of those things and then I'll be back to show you the final. All right, here is our strap webbing all completed. The last thing I'm going to do here is just give it a couple quick passes with the lighter to cinch those thread ends. And the same here. There we go. Okay, so here is what our pro strap looks like. Again, this is just an option. It just makes it a little bit fancier, I think, but it is totally up to you. If you would rather do a traditional strap, a crossbody strap, you are more than welcome to do that. You could even use a pre-made strap. Again, personal preference. All right, so last thing we're doing here, attaching the strap to the bag. And you guys, I love this bag. I love it. Okay, so we have our hidden pocket here. Then we have our interior with our center divider zipper pocket. So good. It's so good. Oh my gosh. With our cute little zipper pull. And it says, what does it say? It's time for football. Yeah. It's not time for football, but when it is time for football, I'll be ready. All right, I have a little loose string right here. There we go. All right, so this is the McCallie by me. This is the version with the flap. You can make a version without the flap. You could also make a version without this hidden zipper pocket here. You could just make it plain, but there you go. And then this is the flip lock here on the front. Here's what it looks like on the back. Yeah, so cool. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial. Please give me a like, share, subscribe if you haven't already, and I look forward to our next video together. All right, guys, have a great day, and I hope you get to go sew something fun.